We're talking Notre Dame women's basketball here in this all-new podcast. Welcome back to the Hoop Central YouTube channel, to all of our returning viewers, to all of our new viewers as well. We thank you so very much for, as always, taking the time to join us. Again, we're talking Fighting Irish women's basketball. We just released a UConn podcast very similar to this, where we're going over the projected roster, we're giving an outlook for 2022, and what to expect from these teams for the upcoming season, and some recruiting notes. And we're doing the same kind of thing here with this Notre Dame podcast. We're going to give an outlook for the upcoming season, talk about what we like about Notre Dame, their projected roster, which is going to be pretty thin. We'll get to that coming up here in a moment, and also some recruiting updates. We're going to talk about their targets in the class of 2024, just some of the high-level targets that Coach Niele Ivey and her staff are looking at right now. So the first thing I want to do to get this started off is look at the projected roster to give you a feel for what Notre Dame has coming into the season, and it's not as much as they would like. This projected roster of scholarship players is pretty thin at this point, and we're going to talk more about transfers and the portal and all of that coming up in a moment, but these are the players that are going to be returning for Notre Dame. Dara Mabrey, she's going to be back as a super senior. That's very, very big news for Notre Dame, just simply because in the backcourt they need that stability. Obviously, you have Citron, you have Olivia Miles, but to have an experienced player back there like Dara Mabrey, who played really well this past season for them, that's very, very significant. So Mabrey's coming back. Maddie Westbeld will be a junior. Natalija Marshall, who missed most of the season with a meniscus tear, going to be back. 6'5", has a lot of size, is going to be a very big factor for them as well. Also, Olivia Miles, Sonia, Citron will be back as sophomores. We just talked about those two. And KK Bransford coming in as a freshman, 4-star guard, ranked 29th overall by ESPN, number 7 at the guard spot. And those are the projected scholarship players. That's not counting walk-ons. So those are the players that we expect to return for Notre Dame. And again, it's a very thin roster. Niele Ivey doesn't have nearly as many players on this team as she would like right now. So that's where we get to the transfer portal. And first talk about some players that Notre Dame has lost to the portal. Sam Brunelle, Anaya, Abby Prohaska. Those three are transferring. Brunelle leaving is very significant because she was once a starter, then coming off the bench, and was playing very well in that role. Same thing with Prohaska, got a little bit of playing time and provided some good minutes, has experience, has been on this team for quite a while, and Anaya really lost her spot to Sonia Citron over the course of the season. Her playing time started to dip because Citron was playing so well. So definitely going to be interesting to see where those three land. Notre Dame has a ton of possible targets that are in the transfer portal that could come to them as well. And we're going to talk about those players right now, just some players that I think could be good fits for Notre Dame and that they could potentially target. And the first one is very obvious, Angel Reese from Maryland. You expect every top program to be targeting her and to be talking to her. When you look at what she did, getting those double-doubles for Maryland, first player since 1975 to average a double-double for the Terps, and led them in scoring, was just lights out for them all season long. You expect every big program in the country to try to get her. And Notre Dame is one of those teams that needs some more finesse, needs some more size on the interior, and she can provide that, not just as a post player. She's not even a stationary post player. She's very athletic. She can move around, can kind of play that 4 spot, really is that 4 kind of player, but with that mix, she can play the 3 as well. So she's versatile enough to play on the outside a little bit, but she has that size. And that's something that we talked about in our UConn podcast, is that UConn needs size, and Notre Dame needs some of that as well. So Angel Reese is an obvious target for all the top programs. Priscilla Williams, transferring from Syracuse, I think she is someone that Notre Dame could really look at as well. Because Notre Dame, if you look at their roster right now, and you look at kind of the glaring hole for them, is wing play. Obviously, Westbeld is there and had a really good season, but you need someone that she can play off of. And Priscilla Williams has that size, has that versatility, has already had experience playing in the ACC against Notre Dame, playing for the Syracuse Orange. So I definitely think she could be a big target. Brittany Smith, UCF grad transfer, 6'3", just like Angel Reese. We talked about the need for size at Notre Dame and some more post play. She averaged 11 and 6 this past season, and I think is definitely going to be a target for a lot of schools. And Notre Dame definitely could be one of those programs for sure. And then 2 players coming over from Oregon. Tons of players leaving Oregon right now. It's kind of a little mass exodus there for the Ducks program. Kylee Watson and Sydney Parrish, 2 players that were Notre Dame targets before they committed to the Oregon Ducks. You know, Parrish got some playing time here and there, not as much as she would have liked. Watson didn't get even as much as hers. So it's going to be interesting to see where those two end up. But I think Kylee could be a really, really good fit at Notre Dame, maybe beside Marshall in the post, because Dodson isn't coming back. That's a player on the interior that you lose. You need to add somebody. Again, whether that's Reese, Brittany Smith, Kylee Watson, there's some good interior post options here. And Parrish as a guard on the outside, definitely skilled. Very good shooter, can be knocked down from the outside. So I definitely feel like there are a ton of good players in the portal right now. There's already over 1,000 players in the transfer portal, guys. So, if you're any top program, there's no shortage at all of players that you can target. So that's a look at some of the players that Notre Dame could be targeting. Again, nothing's set in stone, nothing's official yet with actually who they're contacting. But, you could see them really target some of these players. I wouldn't be surprised to see if they reached out to multiple players on that little list there. So those are just some of the players that I think Notre Dame could target, and that's a ton of stuff with the transfers, with players going out of Notre Dame, hopefully for the Fighting Irish players coming in. And when you get to their outlook for next season and just the construction of their roster, ESPN's Way Too Early Top 25 has Notre Dame at number 9. But that was before Maya Dodson was denied her waiver to come back, and there's been some moving parts, many, throughout the course of this offseason as far as this roster goes. I think they absolutely will be the best team in the ACC coming into this season. I don't think there's any question about that. They are the best team coming in the Atlantic Coast Conference, but will they be a top 10 team to come into the season? I think that they will, simply because, Notre Dame, I think they have that appeal. I think the voters coming in for the preseason poll are really going to like the core pieces that they have. Maybe they're not the deepest team in the country. They're really, really thin, as we talked about at this point, but they could still add a transfer or two. And because their 2022 class was really light, just KK Bransford, you need a transfer or two. So we'll see if they can do that. And again, right now, we talk about all these rosters and we talk about projections and stuff. Yeah, it's not what it's going to be a few months from now. And certainly when November comes around, when the season starts, and when these preseason rankings are coming out. So I do feel Notre Dame is a top 10 team coming into the year. But they're right there like 9 or 10 in my opinion. And I definitely, like I said, think that they're the best team in the ACC. And there's a ton to build on for this team. Going to the Sweet 16 last year and making that run, almost beating North Carolina State, the number 1 seed in the Bridgeport region, there's so much to build on and so much to feel good about for this Notre Dame team. And I know it's not the way that they wish their season would ended, and it felt like just kind of an empty finish just because of the way that game ended. But they did so much, exceeded expectations, especially after what 2019 and 2020 were for them. So definitely an incredible 2021 season, 24-9. To turn it around that much, this program is headed back in that direction of being one of the best teams in the country every year and competing for national championships where we saw them just a few years ago. It wasn't that long ago that Notre Dame won a national championship and then the next year almost won a second in a row. They're not that far off right now from that, but it's a super competitive women's college basketball. So many great teams up there at the top, and their work's cut out for them. But again, there's so much parity right now, and it's so exciting to see that. And Notre Dame definitely is one of those teams. So that's kind of what's going on in the current, in the present with Notre Dame women's basketball. But to wrap up this podcast, we want to talk about some of the targets for them that could be there in the future. And obviously in 2023, they're still doing work. They have Emma Risch already committed to them. But we're going to look exclusively here at 2024 players, targets in this class for Notre Dame. And some of the best players in the country are already being prioritized by this Fighting Irish program. And all of these players we're talking about are inside the top 12 of ESPN's rankings in the class of 2024. And we're going to start with the 3rd and 4th ranked players, Olivia Olson and Kendall Dudley. Olson, 5-star point guard, ranked number 3, again, like I said, out of Minnesota. Really, really skilled guard. We talked about her on the UConn podcast as a target for them. South Carolina, Oregon State. Tons of the top programs across the country are right there. Iowa's recruiting, or Iowa State. You go down the line, this is going to be a blue blood recruitment, heavy with those top programs. And if Notre Dame wants to have a chance to land her, again, it's going to be about activity, going out watching her games, and continuing to contact her day in and day out. That's what recruiting's about. It's just the basics there. And I think she's a big target for them because she's not too far away geographically. So I definitely feel like she's a big target for them. And the biggest draw for her, and I think what schools like about her, is that ability to turn it on. With that mid-range game, she's a willing passer. She's very consistent in that regard. Just a complete point guard overall. And has some nice size. Definitely a player to keep an eye on. And in my opinion, the best player at the guard spot in the backcourt here in this 2024 class. At number 4 is Kendall Dudley, 5-star wing. And again, this is what we talked about a little bit earlier with Notre Dame, needing some wing help. And down the line, that's going to be a priority as well. And you can never have enough elite wings. You can never have enough of these players, because those players at 6'1", 6'2", that can play the 3 spot, that can play a little bit inside, that can take you outside with the 18-foot jump shot, with a 3-point game. Those are the players that are going to keep you going. Those are the players that can help you win basketball games. And Kendall Dudley she's as good as they come in this 2024 class when you're talking about wings and the size that she brings to the table at 6'1". Blanca Thomas is ranked number 6, 5-star post player out of Charlotte, North Carolina, Charlotte Catholic High School. One of those players that not only brings great size but great physicality to that post position. And all of the top schools have been recruiting her as well. UConn was down there in Charlotte to take a look at her during the fall. You look at some of the other regional programs like at Tennessee, those programs are in the mix right now. And Notre Dame has got in on this as well, because when you're talking about post players here in this class, she brings that combination, and maybe better than anybody else, again, of the size but also the strength. And she's getting more versatile, stepping outside with that mid-range game. Obviously, we're not looking at post players being as much of 3-point threats, but we are looking at them trying to develop that mid-range game. And that's what she's doing right now, and doing it very well. Again, ranked number 6 in the class, and at number 12 is a 4-star guard, Michaela Blakes. Someone else that you really got to keep your eye on. This 2024 class is heavy with guards and wings. With the post players, you have some good ones at the top, but it's really heavy with the guards and the wings. And Blakes is one of the better guards in the country as well. Again, when you're talking about 2 guards and combo guards that can play some of that off-ball stuff, you really see them with that shooting ability, the ability to cut, the ability to move without the basketball. And that's the trait. Those are the traits of elite shooting guards. And even if you're a combo guard, you're playing off-ball a little bit, that's what you see. You're even seeing point guards play off-ball a little bit now. Like when Steph Curry moves around and he's just flying all over the court, that's moving without the basketball. And he creates space for himself. And that's what Blakes can do as well. So definitely interested to see how everything goes with the recruiting for Notre Dame. Obviously, coming up soon, we'll talk more with their 2023 efforts. And obviously, you're looking down the line, 2025. Oh, that's a little bit too far out, but 2024 is kind of right in the middle. Players that are just old enough to be targeted and recruited a little bit more by Notre Dame. And they're building this target list. But these are just some of the players. And these aren't even all of the targets in 2024 for Notre Dame. But these are just some of the players that you got to keep your eye on and that you're going to have to take a look at coming up. So that's what's going on with Notre Dame women's basketball right now. And again, like I said on the UConn pod, I'm going to say it here as well, we're continuing to talk about more teams as we go through these videos. We're going to have Oregon, we're going to have UCLA, Louisville, all the elite programs. We're going to give you a podcast specifically on your team and kind of the outlook and what things look like, not just in the present, but also in the future as well. Again, this has been a presentation of Hoop Central on YouTube. We thank you so very much for taking the time to watch and join us here today. Don't forget to give us a like, comment, subscribe to our channel as well. All of those things help us out so much. We'll see you in the next video. Thank you for watching, guys.